Hello and welcome. Today I wanted to share my favorites and one regret. Let's start with the regret because I want to end this video on a high note. If you saw this video, you might remember this palette. It's the Blocks Bijou palette. It comes with 8 watercolors, but from the 8, 3 watercolors are very underwhelming. It's the quinacridone magenta, the transparent Mars yellow, and the burnt umber is underwhelming. It has a weird granulation. The quin magenta has weird chunks and bits. It doesn't completely dissolve. I could even see some bits and pieces floating around in my water cup, which is really odd and strange. Quinacridone watercolors are really smooth, high staining watercolors, but this has a really strange texture. So here are the swatches, and here you can see the quinacridone magenta even sort of granulating in the mixture, and you can really see the chunks here, and the transparent Mars yellow as well. And I thought that the chunky bits were just the top part, but now I swatched it again and you can see the bits and pieces as well. And the burnt umber has a strange granulation. And I compared it to the swatch of Pyrola Red, which does swatch out really nicely. So I regret this purchase. I don't know if it's just my palette that these 3 colors react really strangely. Personally, I wouldn't rebuy this palette. And 83 euros is a lot. If 3 colors don't work. I think if it's cost 83 euros, every color needs to be perfect. I wonder if you can guess what are my top 3 watercolor brands. Put your guess down below. It's in no particular order, but I'm starting off with Schmincke. This is my Schmincke main watercolor palette. I also have super granulating watercolor palettes, which I have put away in these 2 palettes. But I really enjoy their main watercolor line. I still haven't updated my watercolor chart, and I don't know if I ever will. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. But this is a well-loved, well-used palette. They just swatch so beautifully, and the kind of subtle watercolors, they aren't loud in your face, which I like. Here's a swatch card that I made with few of the colors inside of this palette. And I just picked some random colors that I liked. And the colors are swatched on B100% cotton watercolor paper. I have to say, this watercolor paper dries really, really fast. Which is nice if you're sketching and just want to paint really quick. Daniel Smith is also one of my favorite brands. And this is a well-loved palette. This palette also contains Daniel Smith watercolors. It's one of my go-to watercolor brands. The beautiful rich watercolors with nice granulation. And these are the colors included in the watercolor palette. Here are a few swatches from the colors inside the palette. I really love using quinacridone coral and rich green gold for skin tones, as well as the quin burnt orange. And I hope that Daniel Smith comes with a color combination that comes close to the P048. But I believe they have enough stock to last for quite a while. of the PO48. Another brand that I love to use is the Holbein 108 watercolor range. I have 109 watercolors because I have 2 of the marine blue. The old one was PB16 and the new one is, I think, PB15 and PG7. So it's just a tiny bit greener compared to the old version, but they're quite close. I'm just very impressed by their consistency. They all have very similar smooth consistency. And when I was squeezing out these watercolor tubes, not one of them was separated and not a single one exploded. That was very impressive. So here are the swatches. I really love using Holbein watercolors. And of course you don't need 108 watercolors. That's ridiculous. But I am ridiculous. So next up, my favorite sketching pencils. I really love sketching with colored pencil lead. And my favorite one is the Staedtler Mars Microcolor in 0.5 red. This pencil lead is very soft and very smooth, but I wouldn't recommend using a lot of pressure with this mechanical pencil because it tends to break. But this is like a lovely warm red. And you can erase it pretty well. It doesn't completely erase, but it's good enough. So let me So as you can see, it lifts pretty well. So with this one I do have a favorite, is the Staedtler Mars Microcolor in red. I also like using the blue one. And I don't know how to spell it, apparently. Mars color. See, it breaks very fast. The color blue in 0.5. So sometimes I use the blue one, but I mainly use the red one. So here are a few examples. And here underneath a watercolor sketch. And you can still see it underneath the sketch, but it doesn't really stand out. I also like using the Pilot Color Enos. Here I have my 2 favorite colors, is the color pink and orange, but my favorite colors tend to change. The orange has always been my favorite, but sometimes I like using the violet when I'm just sketching. So the Pilot Eno, this one is a little bit thicker. The color pink, and it's 0.7, and it's just like a bright pink color. Color Eno in orange, 0.7. So this color really blends in the sketches. These are, by the way, not light fast. The color might fade when exposed to light. I think this one comes with 6 and this one comes with 12. But I don't know what the price difference is between these two. I think this one is almost double, but I'm not sure. We're gonna skip over the graphite pencils because I just tend to grab whatever I have lying around. I really like the ones that have a comfortable grip, either a triangle grip like these two, or I'm even fine with an hexagonal grip. But I'm gonna use these to showcase my favorite erasers. So we're gonna skip over to my favorite erasers, which are the Tombow erasers. I have the stick version and the zero. The stick version is a lot thicker compared to these two. Like this one is for very small detail highlights. I don't tend to reach for this one. These two are my favorite shapes, and I really need to use this one more often because it's pretty handy for nice straight edges. While this one is a lot better for lifting up some highlights, and this one just picks up a whole lot of graphite. So this is how it looks. I haven't demonstrated this one well enough. By the way, I don't know what to do with these tiny chunks of pieces that stick. So this is how it looks. And I also rediscovered kneaded erasers. For a while I skipped this step, but this one is really handy for lighting up sketches right before you go into your watercolor paintings or inking. But look, I don't know what brand this one is, and I just put it in the box of Faber-Castell. I'm not sure if it really matters what brand it is, but kneaded erasers, like look at the difference. So those were my favorite / most used erasers. Next up, my favorite pens. I really like using this Uniball Eye Micro for swatching because these are waterproof and fade proof. So it comes really handy when you start swatching watercolors. And you can see how opaque watercolors are. And I just really like writing with the Uniball. So I really hope my autofocus isn't going crazy. And of course, it's in the color black. I didn't say that. Up next are the Copic Multiliners. I like these because they are refillable, and I just like the felt tip of these Copic Multiliners. I have the 0.1 and the 0.35. I also had the 0.25, but I don't know where it is at the moment. But yeah, these are also waterproof and Copic proof. And I think I need to refill this one. In 0.25. Copic Multiliner. This is very fine. But this one also feels like it might snap. So I need to be careful about this one. So I mainly reach for the 0.35. And the next waterproof pen that I like to use is a combo. It's the SketchInk and the Preppy fountain pen. I really like using these two together because waterproof fountain pen ink tends to dry out inside of the fountain pen. The Preppy fountain pen closes off completely at the cap, so it doesn't dry out. The only way the fountain pen ink dries out within the Preppy fountain pen is if you leave it uncapped too long. So that's why I like using these two together. I have a video about the Preppy fountain pen and filling it up with the SketchInk. But I have multiple colors of these and I really like using them. But I tend to reach for the SketchInk in Lotte. I also like using the orange one. I think it's called Carmen. I will check that. And I recently refilled this one. So it's really juicy and preppy. And the Preppy fountain pen is in 0.3. So if I'm able to use a fountain pen, I will use a fountain pen. But sometimes the paper tends to get stuck in the nib. Is it the nib? I think it's called the nib. And then I will reach for the Copic Multiliner. So I tend to use these two for inking. I also like using the Muji gel pens for sketching. It's the 0.38. And these two are my favorite colors. It's the black one, which I tend to use the most, and then the navy color. And it's of course the black color. I also love using the jelly roll for highlights, of course. And it's not completely opaque, but it's opaque enough to use for nice highlights. So yeah, I really like using this pen for highlights. So those were my favorite pens. So I don't know what to call this last section. Maybe favorite art materials. So first up, my porcelain palette. I've really been using these two. These are just small enough to use it right beside a sketchbook. and I've been using them for gouache and watercolor. And you can pick up any porcelain dish that you want to use for mixing, but just use it for watercolor or for your gouache and don't eat from it. I think this dish even says, do not put food in it, which is funny. I got this one from the bedroom section, so that might be the reason, but I don't know why you wouldn't be able to put food in. But yeah, this is a favorite of mine. I also enjoy using the flower shaped one, but I've been reaching for these two palettes a lot more often because they are so small and compact. Oh, here are the sizes of the small one and of the longer one. This is a tip that I got from Sketches and Scrubs. She did a video about her art studio and I saw this. I was like, this is a genius hack. Because you can use this dish bar holder. It's a dish bar holder, right? So you can use this soap bar holder as a brush holder. Not every brush fits perfectly, but like this one only fits in the center. Oh, it filled. Oh. Oh, it still fits. But this is a great way to dry your brushes so that the water doesn't go back in and ruin your brushes. So I thought this was just a genius hack. So my art corner is slowly turning in the bedroom section. Like, look, it fits perfectly. And this is also a toothbrush holder. And you can also use a pencil holder for your watercolor brushes. Or even an empty container that's tall enough. But yeah. So using a soap bar holder as a drying rack for your watercolor brushes. I thought it was a great hack. So those were my favorites. Yeah, so that's it for the video. Thank you for watching. And I definitely hope to see you in the next video. Until then, bye bye.